Welcome back to Retire Early, Retire Now. I'm Hunter Kelly, certified financial planner, and today we're tackling a topic that everyone deals with at some point, and that is purchasing a car. Last week we talked about 5 things that you can do to destroy your wealth, especially if you're a high income earner. And that's one of the things we talked about is lifestyle creep. And in lifestyle creep, one of the worst decisions I can see people make is over purchase for vehicles. So today I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. One, how much car should you be buying? Should you be paying cash or financing? And what factors should consider when making those smart financial decisions around purchasing those vehicles. But before we do that, go ahead and like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, Hunter Kelly CFP, where I'll have videos every week covering an array of different topics to help you make sound financial decisions. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, go ahead and leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. But we'll jump right into it. So how much car should you buy? What should you buy? What are some general guidelines that you should abide by so that you can continue building wealth, but also kind of balancing that, hey, I work real hard, I make a good income, I want to enjoy some of that income now. And maybe your thing is cars, right? You want to be able to drive around and enjoy your ride and not necessarily ride in a beater your entire life, right? And so what are some general guidelines? So generally speaking, we want to put 20% down if you're financing that vehicle. So if the car is $50,000, we want to make sure that we're at least putting down $10,000. Now, if you have a existing car that you can trade in and you have equity within that car, obviously some of that cash that you'll get for that trade-in can go down toward this 20%. And then we want to keep financing terms, again, if you're financing under 4 years, because we want to stay positive in our equity. We don't want to get upside down, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. And then keep the total car expenses. That means the loan payments, so principal and interest on that loan, insurance, and other maintenance like oil changes, tires, things of that nature, under 10% of your monthly income. And there's a caveat to this. This is assuming that you have no other consumer debt or very little consumer debt. So credit cards, other personal loans, student loan debt. If you have higher student loan debt or higher credit card bills, we would want to tailor this down to where we're meeting that 10% rule for all of your debt, right? So that we can still have a large percentage of our income going to other things like saving, investing, our needs, like our fixed expenses, mortgages, rents, things of that nature, and give us flexibility there. If we have too much consumer debt or too much of our income going to consumer debt, that will constrain our ability to save, invest, and do the things that we want to do. So that is the general rule. We call it the 24-10 rule. Again, 20% down, finance for under 4 years, and make sure that less than 10% of your monthly income is going toward that loan, insurance, and other maintenance cost. Now, like I mentioned earlier and in the last podcast, one of the things that will erode your wealth, especially a high income earner, is that you can over purchase on things, especially like cars. So just because you can afford a $10,000 or $100,000 car doesn't mean you should necessarily go out and buy a $100,000 car. You have to remember, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Also, what is your liquidity like, right? And so if you're just starting out as an attending physician or graduating college and getting your first time associate attorney position, things of that nature, should you be really going out and buying a $100,000 car or putting even $20,000 down, because you could be eroding that liquidity for your emergency fund and things of that nature. So rule of thumb, again, we don't want to exceed 1/10 of our annual income when we buy these particular types of vehicles, right? So if you're making $200,000, we don't want to spend more than $40,000 on a car, right? If you're making $300,000, $400,000, we want to kind of work our way up there with that math, right? So again, if you're making $500,000, consider purchasing a car under $50,000 or less, unless it serves a specific purpose. Maybe you own a business, you get tax deductions, things of that nature, for that specific vehicle that you may need for business, right? And so a couple of reasons why. One, this is a depreciating asset, right? New cars generally lose about 20% of their value in the first year. So as soon as you drive that new car off the lot, if you bought a $50,000 car, that thing is going to depreciate rapidly, and within the first year, it'll be worth $40,000. So that's one of the biggest reasons you want to put 20% down, is so that you can stay positive on that equity within that car. Because let's say you didn't put that 20% down, you stretch that financing term over 5, 6, potentially 7 years, and you're making those payments. Well, early on, you'll actually have negative equity in that car. So if you needed to trade it in, or you wanted to get rid of it, whatever that case may be, your loan balance will be higher than what that car is actually worth. So generally speaking, by year 3, the car can lose up to 40 to 50% of that original value. And then after year 5, an average car's worth is only about 35 to 40% of what you paid for it, right? And so these things depreciate really quickly. So the last thing you want to be doing is pouring a lot of your wealth or a lot of your income into these vehicles, because you're literally burning that money away, right? And so luxury vehicles, BMWs, Mercedes, things of that nature, they will lose their value much quicker sometimes. And so we want to make sure that, again, we're not putting too much of our wealth into these vehicles, because it's not like buying stock or buying mutual funds where they have the potential, or even real estate, the potential to accumulate wealth over time, or help you accumulate wealth over time. These things are going to depreciate. And so, for example, you buy a $100,000 Mercedes S-Class, and it might be worth $45,000 within 3 years, right? While a Toyota 4Runner at $50,000 could still be worth around $35,000 in that same time frame. So you're going to lose a lot less wealth in some of these more dependable kind of middle grade cars. And so if cars are not your thing, and it's not a priority of yours, going for something like a Toyota 4Runner, or just Toyota brand in general, Honda, Ford, whatever the case may be, and spending maybe a little bit less versus some of these luxury type brands, can help you gain wealth over the long term, right? And so a car is one of the worst financial decisions or investments that you can make, from the standpoint of how fast they depreciate, right? And so you, instead of buying that $100,000 luxury car, take that other $50,000 that you would have taken, buy a cheaper car, and start investing that. And you could grow that money at, let's say, a very conservative rate of 6 or 8% a year. And that can be upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars to 20, 25, 30 years down the road, versus spending that money now and having that money depreciate. And so if you're really looking for the sweet spot on when you should purchase a car, and things of that nature, if you don't necessarily feel that you need a brand new car, buying that car within the window of it being 2 to 3 years old allows you to let someone take the biggest appreciation hit, but still buy a fairly reliable vehicle. So maybe you can find one that's 2 or 3 years old with relatively low miles. That would be the desired outcome there. So now maybe you can level up a little bit, buy a nicer car, but not have to get that depreciation hit so hard up front, if you like, when you would buy it new. And so now I want to jump into more of an example of how I've helped clients purchase cars in the past. So I have a client, is a physician, recently reached out in the last year or so, and was unsure about what car to buy. He just graduated residency, so fairly new into making that higher wage. And so he was earning around $600,000 a year, and he really wanted a brand new Tesla X, which was priced around $100,000 for the vehicle. While he technically could afford it, we ran the numbers and discussed his long-term goals. So he had other things that he wanted to accomplish, had some student loan debt, things of that nature. And so instead of purchasing the $100,000 Tesla that would have depreciated very quickly, I helped him evaluate other options. So we looked at a pre-owned Tesla S, which was around $65,000 at the time, which gave him kind of the same feel. He's still getting a Tesla, still a luxury vehicle. He still had the technology that he wanted, but he's not going to get hit with that depreciation so hard up front like we spoke about. And so additionally, instead of paying cash, he had actually done a really good job of saving and was starting to build up some cash. We actually decided to finance the car over 4 years, right? And so he'll end up actually paying it off earlier. We just met about it not too long ago, but he'll pay that off a little bit earlier, but he was able to finance it. At the time, the interest rates were much lower, right around 3% over 4 years. So now he gets to keep most of that cash in his bank account and his brokerage accounts. Interest rates actually went up, so he's actually earning more interest on that cash than he would be saving by paying that loan off quicker. And so by taking this approach, he kept his money working for him, or his money is still working for him. And this decision alone saved him about $35,000 up front because of the liquidity need that he would need to pay for that car in cash, and then potentially more money in future investments and things of that nature. So takeaway, just because you can afford the car doesn't necessarily mean it's the best financial move to pay for it in cash. But there's certainly things you can align with your goals, things that you can do to allow you to get where you want to go as far as buying that car and still accumulating wealth. So lastly, I'd like to talk about cash versus financing, kind of the pros and cons. So obviously paying cash, you would have no monthly payment, so less monthly stress of making that car payment. There's no interest payments, and it's simple and straightforward. The cons, you're going to lose a lot of liquidity up front into a depreciating asset, right? And so that is taking money away from potential investments and things of that nature. So there's some opportunity costs there. So generally speaking, I like to see people finance within those guidelines that we talked about earlier. So finance for less than 4 years, put that 20% down and keep it under 10% of your income. So paying cash is generally not the best thing. I know Dave Ramsey talks about paying cash and things of that nature. But if your income allows you to keep that debt fairly low, making sure that you have cash on hand for emergencies and things of that nature are more important to me. And you can, as long as you stay within a healthy debt to income ratio, I have no problem saying that you should finance the car. And what are the pros of the financing? Obviously, you preserve that liquidity. The interest rates are not as low as they were a handful of years ago, but they're still fairly reasonable, especially if you have good credit. Maybe you're buying a new car and you can get some better deals through the dealership or the manufacturer, and it helps you maintain financial flexibility again because you have that liquidity. Cons, obviously you have a payment, you got to make interest payments, things of that nature, and it can lead to, the worst part about it is that it can lead to you purchasing more because you look at that payment and you go, oh, it's only $600. I can afford that. Or, oh, it's only $700. I can afford that. But you're not necessarily looking at the long-term effects of what that's going to do to your wealth over time. So again, aim for a good interest rate. So go around and shop. You don't have to use the dealership every time. You can go to local credit unions, local banks, especially those smaller banks. They can sometimes have better rates than the large banks and the potential dealerships there in town that you're looking at, and then keep that loan under 4 years. So final takeaways: spend smart, no more than 1/10 of your annual income. Finance if an interest rate is low and if you have better investment opportunities. So if you're one of those people that bought within the last 2 or 3 years, you may have gotten a low interest rate on that car, and now you can sit in cash making 4.5%, and potentially making a spread on that money. So try to find a good interest rate, keeping that financing terms under 4 years so you can avoid long-term debt and depreciating assets. And then factor in the total cost, right? So insurance, maintenance, depreciation. How does that fit into your overall goal? And so if it does, then certainly go out and purchase that car. Again, it's all about a balancing act, but you don't want to let that lifestyle creep, or because you think you can afford this, take away from other goals that you may have. And so if you're confused on what type of car you should buy, or if this is going to affect your long-term outcome, things of that nature, you can always go to my website, palmvalleywm.com. I would love to help you. But thanks again for tuning in. We'll come out with another episode next Tuesday, and look forward to doing that soon.